Are you searching for a spouse? If yes, then it's best to open your heart to God and let Him show you the person He has in mind for you. We need God's voice to be the assurance on many matters, especially marriage. This is why it's best to open your heart to God, so He will show you His plans regarding your future spouse. Looking for the right spouse can get confusing. However, with God, you can choose rightly. If you're looking for a spouse, then read on why and how you should open your heart to God. When you open your heart to God, He will call you into deeper fellowship with Him because He wants to show you your spouse. For God to show you your spouse to you, you will have to open your heart to God. One way you can open your heart is to work on your life, learn to steer yourself from within you to pray and spend time with God. You may have to remain in the presence of God for hours, fellowshipping and worshiping. When you draw closer to Him, you would get to know who your spouse is. It's best to do this because God's direction and wisdom are usually the best for you. It will guide you from making mistakes. When you spend time with Him, you would be able to tell who is your spouse amongst the several people around you. God wants you to come and be closer to Him because He wants to give something to you. In this case, He wants to help you locate your spouse. He already knows the person, and He wants to show this person to you. So open up your heart to Him so He can show your spouse to you. One way to open your heart is to pray to God. Embrace a prayer life and run with the flow. Depend on Him with all your heart, and He will guide your heart into seeing the right spouse. Remember that as humans, it's easy to make mistakes regarding life partners, so it's best to open your heart and let God do the matchmaking for you. When you're praying to God, you would feel very connected in His presence. This is because your heart is getting open to Him, and He's going to show you your spouse. When you're worshiping and fellowshipping with God, you will feel so connected to Him. Continue to do this. Continue to open your heart, and He will reveal to you your spouse. God would draw you close during times of fellowship, so that you can be sensitive to His words and hear from Him so that He can tell you who your spouse is. When you spend time with God in prayer and open your heart to Him, you will notice that God is drawing you closer to Him and you feel very much connected to Him. God is about to speak to you and show you your spouse. He wants to get your focus and attention so you can firmly discern His words and will for you. He will steer your heart so that you feel connected to Him. Then at the time that you're focused, He will speak to you and let you know His heart's desires regarding your future spouse. So if you notice that God is one way or the other speaking to you about marriage or getting a life partner, then it means He wants you to get closer to Him so that He can properly lead you to choose the right spouse. Open your heart to Him so that He will show you your spouse. If your heart's desire is marriage and you've been seeking God's direction for some time, you should open your heart up to Him in prayer. Open your heart and you will see that God will be the one initiating discussions about your spouse to you. He will be the one to show you the person He wants you to marry. Open your heart and you will never make mistakes. If God has been speaking to you about marriage when you're praying or fellowshipping with Him, it's best that you further open your heart to Him so He can show you your spouse. Draw close and open your heart and let Him show you the person He has in mind for you. Don't rely on your wisdom, but rather on His. Remember that He has the best plans and knows the right person for you. God wants you to open your heart and spend time with Him, so He can show you your spouse. So let your heart be drawn towards God and the things of God. And even more, continue fellowshipping with Him, and as you do so, He will show you your spouse by drawing you closer to a certain person of the opposite sex. God may just lead your paths to the person, so you can meet them and know that they're the one for you. So if your heart is drawn to God and spending time with Him, doing the things of God, and also that you're getting drawn to a particular person in your path. It's God showing to you who He has in mind for you. Lean in closer, and He will show you His heart. If you're ready to get married or someone who's desiring marriage, then open your heart to God and let Him lead you to the person that He has in mind for you. Or, if you're old enough for marriage, then open your heart and stay in the presence of God, and try to draw closer to Him so that He can show you your spouse. If you're of marital age, then it's more advisable that you do this. This is very important, especially if you seek to be married. There's no fixed age to marriage, but if you've reached maturity and know that you could be married at that point, you should get to God close. He will show you whom He desires for you. If you're mature enough to get married, God may be trying to get you to spend more time in fellowship with Him, so that you can draw close to Him, and so that He can show you the person He has in mind for you. If you're old enough for marriage, or you're desiring to marry, and you suddenly start having feelings that you should always be in the presence of God to spend time with Him, then God wants you to open your heart and draw you closer to Him so that He can show you your spouse. God drawing you to spend time with Him is His way of calling you and telling you that you've developed enough to get married. So God wants you to open your heart and get closer to Him because you're mature enough to get married, and He desires to bring your heart request to a reality. If God is drawing you closer, it's best to come closer and open your heart so He can show your spouse to you. If God has been preparing you and maturing you to get married, then it's time to take a step further and lean closer to hear His will for you. If He has been preparing you, perhaps financially, He's making ways for you such that you can take care of yourself and your family. He may also be developing you spiritually and leading you to walk into deeper paths with Him. If God is preparing you in any way, physically, financially, spiritually, or emotionally for marriage, then it's best to open your heart and come closer to Him so that He can show you the person He is preparing you for. If you notice that God is bringing people to your path to teach you about marriage or relationships, it's a sign that God wants you to be in a relationship. Draw closer to Him so that He can show you His heart's desires for you. You may notice that you come across more relationship and marriage seminars, or your pastor, mentors, parents, and friends always call you to discuss certain things about marriage with you. If this is happening, it's God's way of building you up to enable you to prepare well for a marriage. So if you're experiencing this maturing process, it's best to open your heart and draw closer to God so that He can show you your spouse. When God is developing you to bring you to maturity for marriage, it's because He has someone in mind for you, and He can only show you this person if you open your heart, draw closer to Him, and spend time in His presence. So if you've been experiencing some sort of growth, enabling, or maturing for marriage lately, you should take it as a sign to open your heart and get closer to God, so that He can then show you your spouse and lead you to the person. If you open your heart to God, He will open your eyes and show your spouse to you. Don't let this pass you by. Draw closer to God as He's seeking you to draw closer to Him. Remember that you don't want to make a mistake about the life partner to choose.